Okay, so as I mentioned, we want every team to deliver a final project, a team project. Now you can choose any ideas you want, but on the technical side, it must be a web service project. Okay, so everyone heard about this term, but exactly what web service is, pretty straightforward. Here is a more formal definition for web service. Okay, so as you can see, it's talking about a communication approach between multiple devices over a network, and it's talking about a software function and provided over the network with the service always on, and in the concept of utility programming or utility computing. Okay, so quite a lot of technical terms. That's how the computer science definition always look like. It doesn't tell you much information, but I highlighted some of the important keywords here. So for example, it has this service always on. So we'll talk more about that because you're running a server. So you shouldn't have your server stopped. So it should be always on, provide the services. You obviously need a network, and specifically you need internet protocols to do the communication. And that way different devices can talk to each other. Okay, but let's actually put this concept aside. Just dive into examples. Okay, so Google, that's the most typical web service example. So it's a web application. Now you go to the site, you can type and search. Everyone sees different results. Okay, depending on the keywords you inputted, and also they do a lot of personalization depending on your preferences. Okay, so you send that request along with the keyword to Google server, and the Google server processes it and search it and return you the result back. Social media is also web services. Okay, you log into your account, you see all the photos, posts you post there, and you can also see the updates from others. So all of this information coming from a web server, and then you're viewing all the results in the web page, which is a front-end page. Other examples, such as weather.com, you go there to search for weather information based on location, based on time, date, and the weather.com services or web services provide you this kind of information. As you can see, when we're talking about web services, one fundamental difference between web services and website is that the website just mostly have the static content, where the web services does a lot more than just presenting the static content. All right, it gave you the ways to query the result. It gave you the way to save your data. You can interact with the server a lot. Or if you use our Bronco scheduler and type in the keywords, the criteria you want to use to search, and you can get some of this class result information from our school server. That is also a web service application. Some of the mobile application follow the same way. For Uber, take Uber as an example. So you send a request, you want to have a ride, and then they are going to search for all their drivers nearby, calculate the route, and then do the communication and confirm what driver is going to pick you up. So all of these things is managed on their web service. What you see on the app is mostly a front-end UI that allows you to interact with that web service. Okay, so if you think about all these examples I put here, okay, most of them actually follows this kind of architecture. Okay, so there is a server program I've been talking about right here. Okay, this server program should always be on, and takes all this input requests and then sending back responses with all the users' client. Most of the time we're talking about web application, it's use a web UI, it uses web pages, but you can also do with mobile UI. Okay, but in our project, we particularly ask you to build a web UI with web service, with web server program. You can have a mobile component, but before you have that, you also need to have the whole web stack. The web servers also need a database connected that you can easily communicate with the database to store, read, and write all the data. Okay, so that's the typical architecture for the whole web application. So this is pretty much when we talk about web service, that's the part you actually need to build. Okay, however, it's not just one component. As you build this component, you will need to know how to use the database. You probably still need to set up database and then make them connected. You also need to write a lot of web front-end pages so that these users can load it from your server. Okay, so that is what we want to focus. All right, so very high level description on web service is, okay. Previously, I had a lot of slides talk about different details, everything. I actually find that's probably not the best way to do. So I'm going to skip a lot of those, and then I will just focus on the very important. I'll focus on the really practical side. I'll show you just examples. And I do have a very nice recording, in my opinion. Okay, very nice recording on Python. Okay, Python Flask. So I'm going to post that one. And you guys should actually watch that one if you decide to go with Python solution. I was particularly showing Python Flask. From some of the feedback I got over the past couple of years, a lot of the team were saying that it would be nice to have more tutorials on web services, especially on different kind of development stacks. So I'll try to provide more stacks as I can. I think I can do a little bit more on Java. I can probably also show something on Node.js. And yeah, so we'll today, I think since I already have the recording on Python, so I probably will show you how the Java stuff works. How do we write a Java program to implement all these web services? Okay, now, first of all, I'm going to skip a lot of this, but going back to the definition, I do want you to know that these are the key features a web service application should have. Okay, so it is a running server program. It should always on. All right, and then the program takes a list of HTTP requests based on the URLs sent by HTTP responses. So that part I'll show you examples, but I assume everyone knows briefly about HTTP. It's basically just a protocol on how the communication goes. And then the HTTP can specify task with a specific URL, and then you can have input data and output data. All the data is well formatted and then stored by both sides. Normally we use a format called JSON. Okay, so that's what we should build. Your web service, your web application should actually, have this program run, takes HTTP requests, and be able to send response with certain kind of data format. So that's what we want to do. Now, one thing I do want to highlight that if you want to write this program from scratch, meaning that you basically do all this network stuff, HTTP stuff, all yourself, do all the data formatting and parsing all yourself, that's actually a tons of work. I don't think it's possible for any kind of any individual developer to finish all of those. It's an overwhelming amount of knowledge you need to know and implement. It's a very complicated software. Because of that, nowadays when we are writing this kind of a web service program, you do not have to write every single thing from scratch. Mostly you will need to follow some framework to program. Okay, so that's why you might heard about these kind of different names. For example, in Java, if you want to build a web service, okay, so you will need to use this program called Java Spring. Okay, it is a framework. It's still written in Java, but Java Spring has already built all these functionalities for you to interact with the internet, being able to understand HTTP sending and receiving HTTP requests. Okay, or you might heard about Rails. And Rails is a framework for this language called Ruby. So that's why often people call a Ruby on Rails, just talking about this language and the Rails as a web service framework. So PHP is a language, but also it's a web service framework. Node.js, the language JavaScript, you can, but then the Node.js has a lot of frameworks. One famous one is called Express. that also deals with web services. Microsoft using C# right now, and then their network web service framework is called .NET. And then Python has different choices. Python Django is one popular option. A simpler one, is a faster one, is something called Python Flask. Okay, so that's where these names come from. Okay, but they all based on certain language. Okay, but let's actually look at some examples so that will be more clear to you guys. So since in our department, I think Java is still our primary language, I will today try to focus more on Java. I haven't actually done this for a while because I've been doing a lot of Python recently. So this JavaScript has changed a lot. Okay, so let's actually take a look at this one together to see how to make it work. Okay, so let me actually go to the website here. Okay, we're going to search for Java Spring. Okay, so Java Spring is a kind of, some organizations maintaining it, but it's very well open sourced. Okay, you can also make contributions, and then Java Spring has been in the industry for many years. I would say probably 20 years or so, or if not 20, but at least 15 years. Okay, it's also part of the reason why Java got so popular. Java as a language itself, is good. Okay, it's created after C++. But then if you were wondering where do people use Java, I would say majority of Java developers write server programs. Okay, people use Java mostly for the backend, for the servers. You actually go to Amazon, most of their servers are written in Java. I'm not too sure about other companies, every company has Java servers. Recent years, Java is not as popular as before, but there's no way people can replace Java because Java has a lot of good features such as stability, being very mature, good performance. Okay, so but when people are using Java to write all this backend, I would say most of the time they're using something related with Spring. So Spring is a Java framework. In other words, Spring has a lot of Java code already done that give you this kind of functions and the library to build new applications very quickly. Okay, that's why they said Spring makes Java modern, Spring makes Java simple, productive. That's pretty much what they're trying to do. Okay, so there are a lot of things going on with Java Spring. As you can see, I don't know how many of you heard about this microservices concept. It's been a very trending, popular concept over the past 5 years. We can probably talk more about this one later, but in the beginning, we're not going to talk too much to confuse you. As you can see, they also support serverless, another kind of very popular and cool call-based server architecture. But these are really new things. To getting started, I think we really need to focus on the fundamentals, just build a very simple server and see how it works. Okay. Now, if you go down here, they also talk about write Java Spring Boot in your application using a very few lines of code, and you actually need to start building services like a boss. So this is actually something you should use if you decide to use Java, and then you will need to use Java Spring. And inside Java Spring, there's a very good thing called Java Spring Boot. Okay, that basically boost your development on servers. You can run that really quickly. Okay, so that's something we're going to try. You can see only this few lines of code that give you a complete Java application. All right. Yeah, so they also mentioned like Netflix library and framework. They also actually doing Java, but that's just one example. There, I can tell you, in Amazon, I think 80% of servers are done in Java, so they heavily used in the current industry. Okay, so that's whole Spring like introduction. We're gonna go through this page. Okay, since all of this are going like through some changes every once in a while. I actually haven't seen any of those. I'm just going through this one with you together. So let's actually try to click on Spring Boot. All right. So as you can see, Spring has a big collection of different projects and library and frameworks, all of these good things. Okay. Now the Spring Boot will be a very good starting point to get your project ready. Okay. Now, I talk about all of this, and obviously the best thing for us is to go through the quick start guide. Okay. Here they talk about how you create a new Spring Boot project and add the code and then try it and all of this. Okay, so there might be some concepts we haven't touched yet, but let's actually just follow that anyway. Okay, let's see how and what will be the easiest way to get this thing up and running. Okay, so let's actually see. Now to start, they actually have this Start Spring .io website to help you to create everything you need. Okay, let's try this. Okay, I'm gonna right click on this one here. These are totally new things. Okay, they actually, I don't know when they built it, but they probably built it in the last 1-2 years. All right, so Spring Initializer. Okay, so you can choose either Maven project or a Gradle project. So this one for now, ignore it. We're going to talk about this one in probably 1 or 2 weeks. So by default, I'm going to just choose Maven project. Now we're going to use Java. So Kotlin and Groovy, these are languages built on top of Java. They're still Java compatible, but if you really interested on this new like Kotlin language, which is trying to simplify Java, try it. But I think Java is still very good enough. All this version, we don't have preferences, just through the default. And then these ones, some of the information like a group, artifact, it's just some kind of ID, like your package name. Okay, in this case, I'm going to choose educpp.cs4800 and demo, name demo, that's fine. And then 4800, that's what the package name will look like. This is fine. I've got a jar file, just leave it at default. Okay, I think this should be enough. Okay, now let me actually also click on add dependencies to see if there are anything that we need to do it manually. So Spring Native, all of this, GraphQL, Spring Web, and I don't know if we need to choose this one by ourselves, but let's actually, just to be safe, this one might be needed. So I'm going to choose the Spring Web. Or we can, let's actually try it without it first. Okay, I don't want to complicate the demo. So let's just do a very simple one. And let's just generate it. All right. So once you generate, guys, actually you can see they have a div file. And then if you, let's actually extract it, see what's inside. Once you extract it, open it, that's a folder. Now this is a typical Java folder. As you can see, a source, the main, and there's some Java files, the folder, everything is included in that, right? But there are also a lot of other files. And then the most important one is this thing called a Pom.xml file. So if you're familiar with Maven, that's what the Maven is used for. Okay. However, for today, since we're using the tool to generate everything, let's just not worry about all the details. Okay, we'll talk about the Maven, why that exists in the next 1 or 2 weeks. So since this project you have here, you can just directly open it. Okay, so I can just use Eclipse to do it. If you want to use IntelliJ, I'm sure that also works. So I will just stick with Eclipse. And once I open it, and I think we can just import the project directly. Okay. So let me actually switch to a new workspace. This one has too much. All right, so that was a sample project we built before, but I want to show you how you actually build this thing from scratch. All right, so right click here, and then we're going to import because that project package is already there. And I think to import, you will need to do a Maven project. So it's an existing Maven project. Again, Maven is a tool to manage the Java application, Java project, to help how to build things in an automated way. Okay, so I'm going to import an existing Maven project and then choose the root folder. Go downloads and find out the one we just downloaded, demo 5. All right. So it recognized the file, just finish. Okay, all of this one is, as you can see, generated. Okay, we didn't do anything. All right, so let's open the project. Okay, looks good. As you can see inside Eclipse, they automatically recognize this one as a Maven project. And different folders are showing. The most important one, obviously, is the source folder. You can see the package here. There's one Java class, open the Java class, and something like this. All right, there's the resource folder, there's a test folder, and also there are some Maven dependencies, okay, and all the other ones. One important file you will need to keep is this pom.xml file. So this file specifies all the dependencies you will need. All right, so that's basically what we just downloaded from the Spring website. So you do not have to go there to build all of these things, download it. You can definitely do everything manually, step by step, but obviously this one is trying to help you to get the starting version of the project ready so that you can add things on top of it. So obviously this is much more efficient and also reliable because they have all the right configurations and versions for you. Okay, so that is I think the very basic framework here. And let's see if we can run it. Okay, so with all of this, you're supposed to be good to go. You don't need to do anything else. As you can see, they have the main method here. They're running the Spring application.run, and then they have all this class information. Okay, let's just run and see what happens. Right click and run as Java application. It's very easy since it's a Java main method. All right, so it looks like the server is up and running. Okay, as you can see, so they trigger this Spring application, and then they are starting the application and talking about some perf file, started demo app, and then run it here. Yeah, so that's basically what it shows. However, this is not exactly what I want because they started this one and there's really nothing we can do about it, right? So let's actually, with that, let's actually leave it here. We are going to go back to the tutorial and then see what next steps is. So the first step is just simply create a new project. All right. Okay. Actually, when I see we do actually miss this step. So we do want to add this Spring Web Dependencies. Okay. So there are two ways to add it. So there is one way to, I can manually put it, but you can just use the editor here. So let's actually do this one more time. Okay. So I'm going to add that web app. That's why this one seems to be very familiar to me. So I'm going to redo this one more time. I'm going to show you this will be, let me just recreate it. Okay. Demo 5 and okay, so this is the demo 6. It's the same thing. You will find that this one here has a little bit more things down here in the dependency. Again, we'll talk about the dependency in the next 1 or 2 weeks. So I'm going to delete this one. But this one will re-import it. Okay. The short story of this whole thing is that adding the dependency basically give you a little bit more code and library to use. And the Spring Web Dependency is pretty important for the whole Spring project. So if you open this POM file, as you can see, the main difference is that we are adding one more web dependency. Previously, it was something called Stutter. So it's a very simple framework, but here the web actually has more dependency going on. So we'll come back to this one in the future. But if you go open the source folder, open the file, it's actually the same file. Let's actually run it one more time to see if it actually makes any difference. Yeah, there's actually a big difference. All right, so once you put the web dependency, obviously this one, make this one into a true server. Previously, it just show you all the dependencies are there already. Why do I say it's a true server? Because right now, we will run this. As you can see in my screen, this little button here to stop the application, that button is on. So that means that this application currently is still running. It has not stopped because I told you all the server programs should be always running. And because you need to know the requests are coming, you need to actually handle the request. So here means that it has not stopped. And then if you want to see, okay, what's going on? Well, where is the server? What do we do? All right, so we need to go to visit our server. Now, this server currently runs in my local computer. So I need to go to something called localhost to visit it. And then there is also a port you need to know. Okay, the port is 8080. All right, so I'm going to go to the browser. I'll go to localhost 8080. I hit enter. All right, so it shows an error page. However, they're just talking about there's no like explicit mapping for this URL, and so that's why you see this kind of message. So there's nothing we can do because we haven't programmed it. However, this does prove that the server is up and running because the server receive our request and then give us this error page. So if I go here to stop it, okay, I rerun this one, as you can see, there's nothing going on. Okay, there's not even a website or not even server exist. Okay, so that actually shows that this server is currently up and running. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the tutorial. Okay, let's see what the next step. So next step is asking you to provide some code so that you can really try some server and some functionalities. Okay, so let's actually copy this line here. That's the addition. That's really simple. Okay, so I'm going to add this as a new method in the same class. Fix indentation. You obviously need to import all of this. I'm going to do a Control-Shift-I or Control-Shift-O. Yeah, automatically import those because it's already built in. All right, and save the code. All right, so this actually method is really short. They call it hello, and one parameter giving a name. And it's going to return a string by formatting that to be a hello name. All right. So if you try to understand the code, basically you provide a name, it's going to return you a message, hello, the name. That's how it works. All right. So let's actually try this. Actually, why don't we try even simpler one? Let's not worry about this one. I'm going to actually copy and paste this one. I'll just comment on this one. Okay. This is a little bit too much. Okay, let's just not worry about all of this. I'll do a very, very simple one. Hello, CS4800. Okay, so it's that easy. Okay, let's not worry about this stuff. So this method doesn't take any input, and it's going to return the message. All right, so I'm going to run this program one more time and see what happens. All right, now this time the server up running. I'm going to go back to the browser, try this one again, and this one still shows the error. However, there's a difference because now I built my first API. So this one here has a /hello. All right, so I'm going to run my application /hello. All right, so this one still gave me the error. That's not expected. All right, so let me make sure I'm not missing anything or things are not really changing it. Well, that's what we're supposed to. Maybe I didn't rerun it. Okay, let me try it again. Yeah, maybe I forgot to rerun it. All right, go here, try to refresh. All right, so that's not expected. So I'm gonna try their code. I don't think that's gonna make a difference. Okay, let me stop this one. So on the server side code, every time you change something, you gotta rerun it. Okay, so run as a Java application. Yeah, this one does the same thing. All right, so let me make sure we're not missing anything. So they need a REST code. Oh, sorry, I think I missed on this one. Sorry about that one. Yeah, so didn't read that carefully. There's one more annotation we need to put. Okay, so let me actually go back to my simpler version and then put it back here. So what they are asking is that there's one more annotation called a REST controller. Okay, so that's something we missed. So I'll come back to talk about some of this one later on, but for now, I just want you to see what the server looks like. All right, so hopefully this time I go back to here, I go to this URL called hello, and I rerun it, and that actually shows the right results. Okay, so I go to the server, I use the URL called hello, and then it gave me this information. Why that happens, if you see the code, everything kind of self-explained. The reason you have a hello slash because you specify a URL here. So if I'm going to change this one into greeting, okay, I'm going to stop this one and rerun the application. All right, and then I refresh this page. It doesn't work because we do not have this hello URL anymore. So if I change it into greetings, and it comes back again. So that basically shows that in Java Spring, this get mapping annotation, you can always put some kind of URL. And then that URL is going to map the request to this following method. So the annotation is applied on top of one method. So that means the URL is going to trigger this method, trigger the execution method. So this one returns CS4800. That's why you see this little string here. Now, if I change this one into a different number, okay, and then you will see it showing different information. So I'm going to rerun this one and then go back here, refresh, and then this is going to tell me the CS4900. Okay, so that's basically a very simple hello example on this web service works. As you can see, this example looks very simple, but you're running a complete server program that always on, listen to the requests and be able to send in the responses. It can recognize URL, it can recognize all the HTTP requests, all the protocol, and then you can form the data and then send it back. So everything is taken care of mostly by Spring. As you can see, we're not writing anything new. We're just using the regular Java code, regular Java classes, and then add some extra annotations. That's it. But so the really power comes from all these annotations. And the annotation itself has nothing in it, but the whole Java Spring framework provide you all of this information. As you can see, all this output here from the terminal, we did not create those. Okay, they're coming from Java Spring. So to show that, if you actually go to the left, there's one folder called Maven Dependencies. If you open that one, you can see there are tons of jar files included. And those are the code that supports this whole web application. Okay, if you open any one of this, okay, there's just tons of code being written already. Okay, so all this server stuff you're getting are not free. Okay, they're just open source projects that already being built and simplify this application. All right, so any questions so far? I do realize there's some kind of concepts you guys are missing. Okay, one is being the Maven. Okay, if you never know Maven, you probably don't know why we're creating that project, what this file is. So we are going to talk about Maven. Another one is some of this URL stuff and those. I'll put some more technical links and for those, or I think I have some videos to show you. But during the class, I want to focus on the hands-on things. You want to see how the things being running. To be honest, this is the first time I run this example. They actually changed this so much. I didn't realize that one. So previously, I normally just show a complete example like right here. This one is already being built. I built that a long time ago. And I just showed this whole thing to ask students to kind of extend it. I will still give you this code, but I feel that you might want to just see how things being built from scratch. All right, so that is this demo project. Okay, let me actually code this one. So a little bit more onto this code. Okay, so let's actually go back to take a look at this code here. So I am going to uncomment this one, and it's going to complain, fix the dependency. But I don't want to use, I can use two method name same since it's overloaded, but I probably want to change it. So this one will be hello2 maybe. All right. So save the code here. And now I got two URLs. Okay, one is called greetings, one is called hello. All right, let's see what happened. Stop the program and then rerun it. Okay, so go back to the code browser, refresh greetings. You got this one. If I do hello this time, and they show me hello world. Okay, so let's see why I showed hello world, because this one only showed hello and a name. And the name is input parameter. So obviously we're not calling with any kind of a parameter. However, if you actually see there's some annotation for the request parameter. So you can say that the value is name and the default value is a word, that meaning that if you didn't give us the name, we're going to use a word as the default value. Okay, but at the same time, you can actually provide a name. So I believe what you can do is here, you can provide a parameter. You can do a question mark. You can say name equals to John. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter, and that's going to show you the John. As you can see, this is how you can pass input parameters through URL. And then the parameter will be passed over here, being processed. They recognize that's the name. So they will give the value to this guy. That's how the name variable has been assigned with that value string John. And then John will be passed here. That's how you form this message. All right. Hopefully this one makes sense. All right. Now, if you guys understand this one, okay, we can do some little more simpler or a little bit more complex examples, because hopefully you understand that using Java Spring to build web application, you're building a server always on, requests coming in, sending responses, and then you can see all the responses from web pages, browsers. What if we want some UI here? Okay, that's actually very easy. So instead of showing you this, I can show you some HTML code. Okay, so for example, let's try this. I'm going to do HTML. And how much you guys know about HTML? If not, just go to, it's really easy language to learn. Okay, go to this W3 school. Probably this is the best resource. And just take a look at the tutorial and then see the HTML, CSS stuff. So I have another video. I don't think I talk too much, but very briefly, okay? But how the tags will work, you got a HTML tag, you got a body tag, and then you got these titles and everything, okay? So I'm gonna show you something very simple, and I'll go do a body. Okay, and inside the body, I'm gonna do a heading, H1. And then inside H1, I'm gonna show a title. So welcome to my homepage. Okay, so I'm still returning a string, but this time I'm actually returning you the HTML. Okay, now with this, the browser, instead of showing me all this code, I think they will be able to render it. Let's try it. So I'm going to run this one. All right, and then go back to my code. Go here, and then I will go back to greetings. Hit enter. As you can see, this time I got my title here shows up. It's not really giving me this whole code because browser recognize this is HTML code. The browser can parse it and then process it. Okay. To prove it, I can put some like images. You will see those images. Let's actually see. So you don't know how the image works. So let's go here, HTML images, and you can easily just link something. Let's just link from a URL. Are there any examples for URLs? Yeah, let's just use this one. Okay, link this one and go back to Eclipse. So I'm gonna add this one. Let me actually break a line, so otherwise it will be hard to see. Okay, and yeah, let's see if that works. So I'm just adding one like image tag in the middle. This one's supposed to load the image from W3 schools. All right, so I'm gonna stop this one and then rerun Java Spring. Go back here, refresh the page. All right, so now you got a little logo here. All right, so your web page started to get built. Okay, so this little example just show you, okay, you got a web service, and then how do you deal with also something called a front end. And everything I'm talking about today is just a very, very high level and quick go through, so that you have at least some concept on where you're trying to build for this project. If you've already done web application development before, everything should be very straightforward. If this is the first time you do it, don't worry, nothing to worry about. It's just something you need to pick up. You don't need to learn a new language, but mostly you need to understand this whole framework, how it works. However, the approach I showed you here for the web page, this is obviously not the ideal page. You're not going to basically just return all the strings in this kind of way. That's not how the things can work. You will need to actually build HTML pages and then put them somewhere here and then to do the interactions. Okay, so those, let me see if we can find an example. If not, I'll leave that to you guys to figure it out. So this one pretty much will finish the whole demo. The same thing. What the difference that they're showing you how you can do the command line to run and build all the software, which is also very important. We'll talk about those in when we talk about the software build. Okay, so that's one other thing you need to know. All right, so that's it. And then let me actually see if there are anything talking about how we deal with the web pages. Okay, so all guides. Did they talk about the HTML? No, front-end page, resource file. And let's see if this one has more sense. So this is still talking about the basic stuff, okay, how you return all these objects. A lot of things you can learn, okay, but it's very manageable, guys. Don't be intimidated. And what I'm trying to show you is, yeah, maybe the jQuery stuff. Okay, so yeah, this is what I'm looking for. Where do we put the index file in the project? So they put something called a public. Let me see if we can find the file. Okay, so it might be under source, no, resource, static. I think it's somewhere here. Okay. Okay, let me Google a little bit. So Java Spring, what location of index.html. So I'm trying to find out where do we put our index file into the folder. Okay, so it should be looks like into some configuration. I thought you can just put the file directly, but yeah, it looks like. Okay, so this is actually all new approach. Okay, you have to first create a public folder and the resources, create an index file there, and use that web MVC controller, configurator, and do something like this. Okay, so that seemed to be a lot more than I saw. Okay. Previously, I was just adding this one to the static and hit URL. Okay, so let's try this simple. I like simple one. I don't want you to add more code here. Okay, let me try this one first. So what I was thinking is that the static here, this folder, you could actually put some potential HTML files. Okay, I'm gonna do an index.html. Okay, so this one here, and we will build something really simple. Body here. Before, this is like a little title here. Welcome to 100. Course gives you an overview of approaches, tools, and best practices. Okay, so I'm going to save this one. All right, so let's see if that's going to work. Ideally, if you put a file here, they will use that as a default path, so you don't need to worry about how it works. Let's try to run it. Okay, so let me retry this approach first. Okay, that's how it works before. So you basically just need to do this root URL and then hit it. Yeah, so that still works. So this will be the best. Back to Robert's question. Yeah, can you do the mapping? Yes. So that's basically what these people are talking about. So you can actually specify. It's not that kind of mapping, but because you're actually trying to return a file and everything. So they're adding this thing as a view, and there is slash this one. Let's not do this one. Okay, so because this is too much, you need to get this file here. This is good enough. Okay, so this one is fine. Let's actually just do this. All right. Now from there, you have your HTML file built here. Okay, so as you can see, you can already go here and then see the information. And then what we want to do more is to extend this one more. So can we use this one to interact with our server? So right now, for example, our server could do something very simple. You give a name that's going to show you a message. So maybe what I can do, I can try to program a little button here. Okay, greeting. We'll do this one. Let me see if I can refresh. Yeah, I'm going to click on a button and see if we can show some kind of message return right here, the greeting message. Okay, so to do that, I will need to show you the here. I need like a label maybe. A message will show here. Okay, so I click on button and then this message will be changed. Okay, that's what I'm going to try to do. Obviously, right now that doesn't happen yet because I have not programmed how do we interact with my backend from the front end. Okay, so what I want to do is when I click on the button, I want to actually run something, especially run this one here to give you the message because this function already does that. We already know that if you go to / hello, okay, that already gave you the message. But the question is, how can you interact that with within your front end, the web page? The answer is that you need a JavaScript. Okay, so I'm going to write some JavaScript here directly. Okay, I will try to get a very minimum and simple thing to do. So what you need to do is that, are we able to do the syntax highlighting here? This one doesn't look very good. Anyway, so we'll just use this one for now, okay? And but it's very simple. You don't need to dig into too much about detail. I just want to show you the things how it works. So I'm going to do an on-click method here. So when you click on a button, we're going to run a function called greetings. Okay, so there is a function called gradients. So where is the function? So we need to define this one in JavaScript. Function gradients. It's almost like Java, but quite different. Okay, if you just want to show something else, I can do alert. Okay, so you click on a button, it's going to run this function. That's going to show you a dialog called works. Let's see. Save the code, go back, rerun it, click on a button, and that one show you works. That means all the JavaScript stuff works. But what we really want to do is actually call the backend server. Now, in that case, we will need some kind of a JavaScript library to help us to do it in a very simple way. One of the traditional approach is called jQuery. Okay, so they actually show some example here. Now we can try to use that. And then for the jQuery, we do need to add the dependency to our program first, which they didn't show us. Okay, I'm gonna try to find it. So jQuery. Okay, so we'll need to add these ones to our okay, so I'm gonna copy this one. Add some dependencies for the jQuery so that we can use the JavaScript feature there. And then what we want to do is that we can follow their code project here, Ajax, and then sending the URL and then getting the function data here. Okay, so I'm going to copy this one here. Let's see if that one works. Get a very, very simple version here so that everyone can understand. Okay. So what Ajax is that this thing here looks very weird, the character, but it's part of the jQuery library. jQuery is a JavaScript library that helps us to do a lot of special things we need. So this one is going to send a URL request to the server. And in our case, it's not going to be this one, or it's called localhost colon 8080. Okay, and then we're going to use hello as our URL. Okay, this is the same one I showed you earlier, this one here. Oh, oops, this one. Okay, so I'm going to call that URL from a JavaScript, and then after that, I'm going to get a result. The result will be this hello world or some other text. Okay, so what I can show you first is to prove that if I do alert data, now you will see that return shows up on the dialog. Okay, so that should work. Okay, so that's very simple. So I'm going to go back to my code and then refresh my front-end page. This time I'm going to click on the button. All right, as you can see, guys, it actually come back and show me this message called hello world. Okay, because I am calling that thing with hello here. All right, and but I instead of showing the dialog, I can actually modify this part here. That part is not too difficult. So what I need to do is I need to give an ID for this label. Okay, so this one will be, for example, message label. Now, here I will say that in JavaScript, I'll do message label dot value. Actually, let me actually, or actually, let me try this HTML. That's how you change it. And let me give it a try. Okay, so this one anymore. Save it.
You misspelled the label on top.
All right, nothing happens. I assume something wrong here. So let me Google a little bit. jQuery update label text.
I think on line 11, you misspelled the label.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, that's a good catch. Okay, let me see. They use the text. Okay, let's actually use the text. All right, so save everything. Good catch, guys. All right, refresh and then click on the button. And as you can see, this one got updated. All right, so it's a really simple example, but it shows that my front end page is actually interacting with my server. Okay, so for example, if I'm actually going back to change my server here, if you make some changes here and rerun it, okay, so refresh page, I'm going to click on the button, and you can see the message will be updated. Okay. And one last thing, okay, if you guys want to see, okay, I want to get an input. Okay, so all you need to do is right here. I'll get an input box. Okay, I apologize, the text is so small. I'm going to put the code somewhere later on. Okay, so I'll do input. And then I think we need to do is it a type text ID? I'll say input dash name or underscore name. Okay, so go back, refresh. So we got a little input box here. I can type a name. So then from here, you can actually grab the name. Okay, either define a variable called a name or m name just to differentiate it. So this one will be coming from that input box, which is named as input underscore name. That's what the ID is used for, so that you can actually reference that tag. And I think this one is something called value. Okay, let's try that. So with this, you can grab the name, and then remember this URL. Actually, we do support to provide some extra parameters. So I can then add the things here. Okay, so refresh. So this time I'm going to type Tom, greeting, and hello, Tom. All right, I'm going to change that one to Amy, greeting, and hello, Amy. So that's how you can actually grab the URL, sorry, not URL, but the keywords, and then click on a button and get a result. That's basically how Google works. Okay. The only thing is Google actually does so much more than just showing a text. They actually query the database and everything. Yeah, so good question, Arash. So that's basically how it works, because the front end stuff, okay, so they are sending to the client browser, and you're really running this one from the browser. Okay, and that's why as long as you save the code, because once you save the code, you put it to the server, when you request this one next time, it's basically going to load the file from the server. So it doesn't matter, it doesn't run anything. It just send you the file and then you render that in your browser. So that's why it doesn't need to be restarted. But this code is different, because this one, you got to recompile. Don't forget, Java is a compiler-based language. You know, you change something, you actually need to run the Java C, you know, rebuild the class file. And then, you know, that's basically why I actually rerun it. There are some kind of support recently that whenever you save the Java code, it will automatically rerun the code, but it still actually does the recompilation process. Yeah, most of front-end page, you don't need to worry about rerun it. So that's a nice thing. All right, so yeah, this part of code kind of too small, but hopefully that one shows you the idea. Okay, this one probably looks a little bit better. I try to get the minimum amount of code. Really, this you can't get more less than this one. Okay, this one shows you the HTML page. That's our front end page. The body part shows all the AI widgets with all the tags. Even though I don't have a very fancy page, but I do have the input and output. I have an interaction button here. Okay. Now, when you click on a button, that's the trigger. Okay. On click, it shows you the greetings function, and then you define everything in JavaScript. And this function name is called greetings. Inside the function, you can grab the value from the input box. You can then use Ajax function to make a HTTP request call. And then whatever URL you want to call, it receives the data. And then once you receive the data, you set that data to be part of the label. Label is the tag, you're going to show the text. So that's the whole flow. It's a minimum example, but hopefully you see how the front end and the back end works. All right. But I do want to say that this JavaScript approach, okay, is based on pure like JavaScript and jQuery. You can obviously do the project with this, but if you want a more professional version, and now I would recommend you actually go with React, Vue.js, Angularjs. So one of these three. Okay, so one is React. This is very popular. However, I do want to remind you that this is not this is going to be taking a little bit effort to learn. I would say there will be some learning curve. Okay. This one, I would recommend you to take this one if you are also doing the Flutter stuff, because some of these things actually looks very similar to Flutter structure. You will find, a lot of similarities. Okay, another one is called Angularjs. I used to like Angularjs a lot until they totally bumped on the version. I don't know what the Angular version right now is. They made huge changes. This is a very powerful framework that you can basically, see doing all of this kind of live updates very easily. Pretty cool framework. When they came out in the beginning, it got very popular, but I do know that they are changing a lot. They are bumping the version. They mostly use those little tags here to specify the data, the model. Okay, so that's another option. Google is maintaining the AngularJS. The third one, I have never used this one, but I got a lot of good feedback on this one. It's called a Vue.js. Okay, the main thing people talk about good about this one is I think it's a little bit simpler and less learning curve. It's still very, very popular. A lot of companies are using this. And then they also give you something like this. As you can see, you want to show a message, here is what you do. And it's more structured, more readable. And that's pretty much the advantage of Vue.js. Okay, so if I were going to do something, I probably would try this one next time. But it's all your choice. I think in the US, I think React probably more popular. And in some other country, I know Vue.js is more popular. Okay, so but keep in mind, any one of these three takes some time to learn, to practice, to do exercises. You have a whole team, so hopefully one or two members of the team can focus on the front end, because this is a part that you will need to learn a lot. But the good thing is all of these things have so much resources online. You can just find and learn. Now, we're not going to spend time in the class to teach you how the React and Vue.js work. I can probably show you an example, but that's not going to be enough. So plan that ahead of time, chat with the team to see how you want to go with the front end. Backend is a lot easier because whether you're using Java or you're using Python, you're using Node.js, those are, I would say, very manageable because you're pretty much code the regular way you have been doing. The only new things are just these annotations, as you can see, the return and input. These are the only new things. But other than that, the code itself is all based on the language itself. So that part is so much easier to manage. Okay, but the front end needs some decisions. Okay, or if it's the thing you're trying to do is pretty straightforward, use this jQuery approach is totally fine. Okay, that's totally enough. You don't need to create all these fancy frameworks. Okay, so that's all I want to show you on Java. Now, I do want to remind you again, I have another recording for Python. I highly encourage you to take that one. To some extent, I think the demo I did for Python is so much better than this one. Okay, so I'll send you the video link there. Read that one to see which one you want to go. The Java Spring, it's a little bit more than Python in terms of code, in terms of getting all this dependencies, getting that from the website, but still a very good framework, very mature web service framework that's being used widely in the industries. Okay, so look at both. Now, I might want to spend some time also to look into some other things like Node.js or some others. Maybe we can do some tutorials on Angular or React. So we'll see. Okay, so I'm personally also very interested in some of those development. But previously we didn't give you so much examples. However, I did get some good feedback from students that this might be especially helpful for you in the beginning so that you know pretty much what you're going to build for this project. All right, so that concludes the demos for Java Spring. Do you guys have any questions, comments? All right, well, if not, I think, let me actually stop recording first.